I want to talk ahead and then come back to it because I want to give you a chance to actually attempt this one on your own. So I want to talk through the part that is different and then let you guys work through it and then do it together. All right, so I've got my numbers in my calculator. The problem itself, let's kind of think through this. I've got a sigma, which definitely means I'm going to use what, but we haven't talked about the other one yet. If I know that I got sigma, I'm going to use a what? Z. Simple random sample of 20. What kind of things is that helping me with? What does SRS mean? Which means random. So there's our random condition. What can I use this for? So that's my lowercase n. What can I use that for conditions? 10% condition. So what do I do with 20? Multiply it by 10 and I get 200. Even though I haven't read the whole problem yet, screens from a single day's production. So we would just say that there are at least 200 screens in a single day's production. That doesn't seem unreasonable. They're making something. So what's the condition we have not checked yet? Normal. What does this tell me that might or might not apply to normal? The fact that it's 20. What does that mean to us? Well, that definitely means it's not normal through what? Central limit theorem. What's the other way it would definitely be normal? If it's stated. Do you see the word normal anywhere? No. So we're at our third option, which is the one we have not done yet, which is a histogram. So I've got my numbers in my calculator. How do I graph a histogram? Second y equals second stat plot. You're going to plot 1. You're turning it on. You're making sure that it's the histogram. Your X list should be wherever you put it. Your frequency should not be a list name. You just do frequency as 1 if you have a list name in there. And when you graph it the way the calculator wants you to, it should look something like this. Isn't that what y'all's looks like? I don't think mine switched. Okay. This is more along the lines of where I think it's really beneficial to understand how to manipulate the graph in your calculator. Because we are trying to make it generally look what? Kind of normal. We want to make sure it doesn't look bad. That to me doesn't look great. So I would rather see, if you don't know how to do it in the calculator, then that seems like a lot of work. So what do I do to change this? What's the first button I click? Window. And it gives me these options. Hello? Yes. I will, thank you. Brady, you got to go to Gibson. All right, so I'm going to change my X scale. Right now it's 28. So these are all guesses. So what do you want me to attempt if it's 28? What's something I could change 28 to? 29, okay? I heard 29. So 29, I'm going to try that. Just switch it and hit graph again. That already looks a little bit better to me. Give me another option. 27. That might look even better to me than 29. So am I picking numbers because there are specific numbers that I have to find? No, I'm just trying numbers that are close. Would I want to use something like 60? If I did 60, is that graph very helpful? No, so you definitely want to pick something close to what it said originally. I liked 27. Just to show you an example of something that you can also do. Here I use 30. I could actually technically change my minimum. So let's say I want to make my graph start at 230 and go by 30 instead. Now, that didn't help me much, but sometimes it will. So you can technically change where it's, so like I'm also going to think of, I want numbers that are easier for me to write. So I might want to start at 230 and go by 30s because that seems easy to me. That doesn't look like a bad graph. So again, just like we've done before, you can manipulate this graph however it is that you choose. I liked the one that you guys said though the best. I think that was the 27 because that one looked really good. Was that 20? Oh, that was with my 230 in there still. So I liked that one probably the best that we've seen, which was just using the initial that it gave us and me switching your X scale to 27. All right, so right now, I want you to do the problem that is on the bottom, the one that we're talking about, the one you just type the numbers in, of the 4-step process. But at normal, I want you to sketch this graph, and I'll tell you the pieces that need to be added to it, but that's the only thing that you shouldn't be able to 100% do on your own right now. And start going over it because there's one more thing I want to do together. So state you should be fine with, and if y'all are still finishing stuff up, I don't mind. Because I had state on the board for a little bit, we want to estimate mu, the true mean tension of the mesh, the fine wires that lies behind the surface of the viewing screen for this manufacturer on this day. I think the wording changes throughout in this problem a little bit, so your wording might not be exactly specific, but this part is the part that most people would leave out that is actually very important. So it's just for this manufacturer. Oops, I'm frozen. It's just for this manufacturer, and it's just for this day, because it literally said on a specific day, and if I'm trying to apply 10% condition, I need to be thinking about it as specific as the problem said. And it's with 90% confidence. So again, this is one that I probably would have said, let mu equal all of this, and then just reference that throughout, and that's fine. All right, so what is our first part of plan? Method. Method should be pretty easy right now. The first thing is it is a what kind of sample? A one sample. We are choosing to use what is our critical value? Z, and we are constructing a interval, and it's specifically right now for means. The one thing you got to make sure you remember is I chose Z because sigma is known, and you have to specify that. And a lot of people tend to forget to do that part. So random, this one literally says SRS in the problem, so stated SRS, then just make sure you write, so that means it's random selection, not assignment. All right, so for normal, I want to write what you need actually there. This seems very vague right now, but eventually we go with a different kind of histogram that's in 4-step processes like this. So I need a label that this is the histogram of my values. So we're only dealing with a one sample with one variable of that one sample. So the values of that one variable of that one sample are what I'm graphing here. Eventually we deal with something called residuals, and we'll also deal with histogram of residuals. That's the only reason why you need to differentiate.
You want us to give it that title?
Mm-hmm. So I need you to write histogram of values. This doesn't have to be perfect, but I need it to be there. But I do want to see some numbers. So the graph that we made, where does it start? I definitely have to have that one and this one. What's our last one going to be? To what? I would probably put one in the middle, especially because this split well. What is that one going to be? 27. What? 314.
Did you skip that by
Trace would get you there, or you could add your class foot. I don't really need any labels other than that because when I wrote histogram of values, what's going to be on my x-axis? The values. What's going to be on my y-axis? Frequency. So if it makes you feel better to write, that's fine. But because I'm writing histogram of values, I'm saying the values are going to go on the x. It's a histogram, so frequency is on your y-axis. Now, the one thing I do have to specify is why I did this and what I looked for. So, I'm going to try to move it that way. Sorry, I messed up my arrow. What did we write in our fourth step? There are two things I had to check for. I wanted to make sure that it was fairly something. Fairly symmetrical. And I wanted to make sure that it definitely did not have what? No extreme outliers. That extreme is important because when we first graphed this, there was one that could have been an outlier because there was like nothing here, right? And that would have been fine because it wasn't an extreme outlier. This one definitely looks better and proves our point a lot better. But we probably would have been okay because it says no extreme outliers. Now the last thing I have to include is what? So we can. So the difference with this problem as opposed to yesterday was that it gave us the data and I couldn't check the normal conditions without making my histogram. It didn't give me anything else. That can happen for if it is a Z or if it is a T. So I specifically wanted to do it before we got to T because I didn't want y'all to think that it was just for that one. The only time that I could do this is if the problem actually gives me what? All the values. If it doesn't give you the values, you can't make the histogram, so you know it's not one of those. I could give you the values and also give you the standard deviation, and also give you that it's approximately normal, and you still not have to make the histogram. And then independent 10% condition, we talked through this at the beginning. Capital N is greater than or equal to 10N. Capital N is greater than or equal to 200. There are at least 200 screens tested for tension by this manufacturer on this given day. Questions on anything with plan? All right, so do, what's the first thing I write down? What is X bar? Specifically the number for this one. Say it again.
306.32.
What else do I need? Which was?
42.
What else? Which is? And which gives me a Z star of? So I'm just plugging in my numbers here. What do I put in between? Mu, because that's what I'm trying to estimate. What goes here? What do we get as our lower value?
290.87.
What are more, just because I typically go to 4 decimals.
8710.
Just because in the past I usually do this. And then, I didn't say myself right. What should I put there? And then what's my upper value?
321.7690.
Say it again.
321.7690.
What's the little MV thing mean?
It gave us our units is that way for standard deviation, which means our units would be that same way for the values.
What does MV stand for?
What? Millivolts. Now I have numbers typed in, but I think they're wrong. Yeah, I changed the problem since I've done this. This was 290 point, and what was this one? Questions?